Jets fans! 2-0 the New York Jets have managed to be in this preseason. Are you psyched? Are you in a good mood? Yeah, what are you going to do, right? Hey, 2-0. You know, are we complaining? I don't know if we're complaining. But anyway, welcome to episode 165 of GreenBean's Jets Pod. I am happy that you are here. This is a fun thing to do for me. It's particularly fun when I don't have a game to do on Sunday and then do this to release it on Monday. It's hard. It's especially Sunday Night Football. I don't know how I'm going to do it. That's why it's one of the reasons I like 1 o'clock games so much. They're just so damn good, aren't they? I get lots of time in the afternoon. But the Jets, as we know, have numerous primetime games. Mondays, Thursdays, Sunday nights. It's going to be nuts this year. That's why, and I'll remind you now, the Talkin' Jets ticket buy, we have single-digit tickets left. I think we had 90 or 100 total. Single digits left. Tailgate with Tailgate Joe. All the food, all you can eat, all you can drink is included. Game ticket included. Discount parking included. Plus, we're getting on-field access at the end of the game. All together, all in our group. It's going to be a fantastic time. Last year's was epic. It was such a good time. Too bad the game sucked so bad because, man, was it really revving up to be one of the greatest nights ever. We went for the Chargers game last year. This year we're playing the Denver Broncos week 4, 1 o'clock game, everybody. The only home 1 o'clocker till like December. It's crazy, man. But anyway, I hope you guys can join us. Go to talkinjets.com to see your ticket options. You can buy just a ticket or you can buy the whole package and get all the food and the on-field access and all that stuff with us. I hope you'll join us. Again, only a few tickets left, man. And if you want to go, I hope that you do. So, with all that said, here we are, man. We just got to week 2, preseason. 31 starters didn't play. 31 players didn't play. Not all of them were starters. The likes of Jamie and Sherwood, Rucker. These wouldn't technically be starters, but I think important players of the team. You know what it really boils down to is roster locks. That's what we're looking at. Roster locks, guys that are not in question. Couple interesting ones. Up top, Malik Taylor, not playing. Hansen, the O-line, not playing. So Malik Taylor's interesting, isn't it? It's like you think that he's fighting for a roster spot. Who are our wide receivers that we know are roster locks? You got Garrett Wilson, he's up top. You got Mike Williams, he's right there. Then you got Malachi Corley, rookie. He's playing, even though he's not, he's a roster lock. He's playing because they're getting him reps. Same thing with Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, those kind of guys. You got Alan Lazard, so that's 4. Then it's a question mark. Gibson didn't play either, so he looks like a lock, or he's still nursing that injury. But then who? Right? So when you see Malik Taylor, who by the way, I am a fan of making the roster. NFL experience, at least somewhat of a rapport with Aaron Rodgers. And he's made big plays for us, in limited action. He's just a reliable guy. So I like him for the back end of the wide receiver group. But that puts us at 5. You got Gibson, Brownlee, McCutcheon, Brandon Smith. I was surprised to see Malik Taylor off of that list. I didn't see anything injury-wise for him, so it looks like it could be a positive sign for him, which I'm a fan of. But so, we got 31 guys that aren't playing, all the way down to the Malik Taylors of the world. Jamie and Sherwood, who's not actually, if we got 3 linebackers out there, he is a starter, but what we saw with the rest of the guys was a sloppy mess. All right, can we just say that? I mean, it was reminiscent of Jets regular season games of the past, even last year. Those games that you look up at the clock, you feel like you've been here all day watching the game, and you're like, it's 13 minutes left in the third quarter. What? Oh my God, I'm going to do this all day. So it just felt like that. It was a very slow-moving game, limited offense, sloppy on both sides. Both teams were resting their starters. So it's one of those games where it's an evaluation game. That said, there were some things that really popped out of the game. Some players. Now, I'll talk quickly about a couple players that I really like that are fighting for the final roster spots. We'll start with the defensive line. Braden McGregor, undrafted free agent out of Michigan, look, it's funny because if you're just a box score guy, right? You look at the box score, you go down the list of who did what, who had any catches, who had any tackles and sacks and all that shit. He's not on there. He's not there. He had 0 tackles, 0 sacks, 0 impact by the box score. But the guy was everywhere, stringing out sweeps, taking on tight ends out of taking them out of the potential passing lanes, taking the tight end out, and still managing to get a pass rush, still getting his hands up in the passing lane. You saw the one play where Al Blades, the quarterback threw the pass because Braden McGregor was in his face, so he'll get a pressure for that. But boring, right? Who would pressure? Very, very important. But as far as the immediate stat line that you see, it's like it just doesn't pop off the page because he's not even there to pop. So, but that was the pass. Quarterback rushes to throw or throws it errantly because of the pressure, goes over his receiver into the waiting arms of Al Blades, who drops the sure pick. And not for nothing, could have been a streaker down the sideline for a touchdown. Could have very well been that. Maybe not. Either way, it would have been a change of possession. Al Blades drops it. Al Blades not having a good preseason overall. Had made a couple plays, but glaring mistakes by Al Blades. Sad to see, but it is what it is, man. We talked about him last week. You drop a pick like that, dude, that's a big one for a defensive back. But again, Braden McGregor was everywhere. Pressure, clogging holes, jamming, running, passing lanes, stringing out sweeps, all that kind of stuff. Crazy motor. Showed him on special teams. Now think about this. You got a defensive end on kickoff, and he's the first guy down there. Now, he didn't make the tackle, changed the receiver's direction, and then was in on the tackle after it. Got receiver returned it for maybe, 5-6 yards, something like that after. But he was the first guy there. So this is a guy that it's like, I don't know, man. It's going to be real hard to cut a guy like this because the teams that are deficient in this area, we talked about it with Leonard Taylor III last week, who was a bit quieter this week, right? We could say that. Did not have the consistent impact that we were hoping for. Now he's got one more game to really show his stuff, or else, that's the issue. He's really, really talented, had some pressure, but inconsistent. So do you keep a guy like that who clearly needs work and risk? But he might be a guy you got to risk waivers. But Braden McGregor is not. He has been consistent with the kind of impact that he has. Again, maybe not popping off the stat sheet, but the impact is there on the game, on each individual play that he's in. So I don't know. The other one is Takk McKinley. Takk McKinley, man, he's shown it in practice against our own squad. He's shown it in the joint practices. He showed it last week. He showed it again in the Carolina game. The guy is driven, blazing off the edge. And the way that he's tackling, we talked about it in the live stream with Jeremy, Frankie, and Dom and myself. The way it was like violent. You could feel it, sense. There was a violence to it that's not always present. I don't know. You might be catching lightning in a bottle here. A guy, first round draft pedigree, doesn't meet that billing, gets let go from the team that drafts him, and you grab him. He's a bottom end of the roster guy who's showing, hey, I don't want to fall out the bottom. I don't want to fall off the edge. I want to make it. This is the team. This defense is going to be sick. I'll feast here. Another one. He was everywhere. He was all over the place. Another defensive guy that popped off. Zaire Barnes his stat line is pretty good. Led the team with tackles. He had 3 solo, 4 assists, so 7 total tackles. And he was another guy that was really, you could see him. He was flying. He was wherever the ball was. And the other one is the linebacker that we might know a little bit less about. And that's Jackson Sermon out of Cal. 6'2", 240-pound linebacker, man. He was flying, and he was everywhere the ball was, which is what you really want to see. You ever heard the term nose for the ball, right? Like that's what you're looking for from defensive players. They have a nose for the ball. If you're a defensive back, a guy that he just can sense where it's going to be, safeties, free safeties, and they have that line, and they're always a threat to pick it off. Or, defend the pass. That's the guys you want. Linebackers, you want them to be right where the ball is. As soon as they can see it, they can sense it, they pick up on it, and they're a heat-seeking missile right to where the ball is. Sermon was showing that ability last night. Another guy where Chaz Surratt, who I like a bunch, has really been sloppy, has not had a good showing in the preseason thus far. We know Saleh likes him, but a guy like Sermon could be pushing. Now, these are probably practice squad guys. We saw guys like Codrington and Bartholomew have really good games, but it doesn't matter what they do unless barring injury, God forbid, it's going to be real hard for guys like that to make the roster no matter what they do. A famous one years ago that bothered the living hell out of me, same exact situation, Atari Bigby was on the Jets. You might not know this, but he was on the Jets. He was part of our squad in the preseason, had like numerous picks. He had one game, 2 picks, and we cut him because of the mainstays on the team. He goes to the Packers, and he has himself a very, very solid career. And it was one of those guys, I was screaming like, you can't cut him. This is back in the 90s, I think, man, to early 2000s. It's like you can't cut the guy, but they did. Exposed him to waivers, probably wanted to bring him back, but he didn't make it, and he had himself a legit NFL career. And I'd hate to see it with some of these guys, but when you have a team like this, that's what you're going to see. So the game was sloppy, but we won. And it's interesting how we won because Aaron Rodgers has been talking, after the game. He says he's really excited by what he saw. And you think, what? How are you excited about what you saw? Well, I'll tell you why he's excited about what he saw, because he's looking at offense. He's looking at 2 things. He's not really worried about Adrian Martinez or Peasley. Worried about these guys. Of course, you'd love to see them play well and everything, but that's not his concern. His concern is offensive line depth, right? That's number 1. The offensive line has looked pretty good. Olu, while he did have a couple struggly kind of run plays, last week he played against the Commanders. He played left tackle. Against the Panthers, he's playing right tackle. Now, why are they doing that, everybody? If you've been paying attention to any degree, they want him to be the main backup on both sides. They want him to be what we call the swing tackle, which would be fantastic. Get him as many reps on both sides. That versatility is invaluable. So no matter which side goes down, you got the same guy, same level of talent that can come in and fill in. That's what they want with Olu. He looked fantastic. Moving dudes just like you want them. Brick wall on passing downs for the most part. Week before, 14 passing plays, no pressures. So he really, really solid stuff. So he's looking at Olu. He's looking at the interior of the offensive line. He's clearly a huge fan of Brady Latham, which he may or may not. But I love him. I'm hoping that guy can find his way onto this team, man. I love him. You saw one play at Brady Latham. Exactly why we love him. He plays till just after the whistle. I love that from my offensive lineman. Driving dudes off the screen, driving them into the ground. It's a fantastic thing to behold, and I like him for that. Physical athleticism, maybe not the highest, but he's a guy that if you can develop him, man, he brings that mean streak. So he can play guard and center. He can play both guard spots and center. So that's the kind of guys. It's important. We were talking about it. Don was bringing it up on the live stream. It's important, man. So Aaron Rodgers is looking at that. What else is he looking at? He's looking at the running games. He's looking at Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis and maybe Izzy. He's looking for what these guys can bring. He's looking, what does Kenny Yeboah look like when he's being used as a fullback? What does Kenny Yeboah look, or Ferkser? What are these guys doing in the passing game, in the running game? How are they blocking? All these things, in all these areas, we had a very good showing last night. Maybe not on the points at the end of the game, but Aaron Rodgers was interviewed, and he said a few very cool things. Let me show you those things. How's that sound? Let's talk about his actual words. I think that's a fantastic idea, Bean. You do? I do. Me too. Good. We agree. So let's talk about this. The first thing, Aaron Rodgers, he's talking about the comparison with last year's joint practice against the Panthers. So he says, look at this. So he says, we try not to compare too many things, but we don't like to compare. But if we are comparing, but you look at the way we practiced against Carolina last year. We didn't do great against their front compared to what happened a couple days ago in practice. Coming out of the practice field, felt really good about things, right? So what's he talking about? He's talking about the Carolina defensive line manhandling to some degree the Jets offensive line. Now, at that time, I don't think we had Becton. I don't think we had Dwayne Brown, right? Our two injured tackles. So AVT could have very, very easily been on some sort of pitch. I don't remember the specifics, but, we're talking about he's looking at this, and there's a marked difference from what he saw. Now, watch what he says about the O-line as a whole here. He says, obviously, the line looks a little different, adding some veteran guys to it. I like the momentum we have up front. The way those guys are blocking, I love Joe Tippmann at center. Woo! Is that why you're wrapping your legs around him in the hello hug beginning of practice? He's been a really solid second-year player for us, but adding Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses really solidifies the edges. More on that, it brings those veteran presences into the room to help Keith Carter, the offensive line coach. The best rooms, the best teams are player-led, and you need those veteran voices to help those guys out because we have so many young guys who played last year. So many, and more that we brought on this year. So you see what he's saying? He's talking about Tippmann. He's talking about Tyron Smith. He's talking about Morgan Moses, the leadership, the guidance, the impact on the youth. Even AVT is a young guy. He's going into year 4. Tippmann's going into year 2. And then you got the whole batch of youngins behind these guys. It's exciting. But watch this one too. So he talks about one of the new acquisitions as well. He says, you watch John practice. Now he's talking about Jonathan Simpson. He's probably the most surprising. Not being disrespectful, but I didn't really know him. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know a lot about him. But the way he's practiced and played has been phenomenal. So you feel good about the offensive line. We're coming together. It's tough in the joint practices because we don't do a whole lot in them. It's kind of like the preseason, but feel good about the squad. So he talks specifically about Joe Tippmann. He talks specifically about Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses. And now Jonathan Simpson, what they bring to the offensive line, because only AVT and Tippmann are returning from last year as far as the starting offensive line. Now you look at Olu Fashanu on there. You bring him in the mix. They sat Wes Schweitzer, so we know he's on the team. We're hoping that maybe they bring back a Connor McGovern. But I got to tell you, it's been nice to watch these young offensive linemen. That's kind of where my focus is. When I watch the games, that's where I'm looking. I'm looking to see where the pressure's coming from. I'm looking to see how they handle any line stunts and things like that, how they're passing off protections. That's always my focus. I'm a very, very much line-driven It's hard not to watch the ball, but it's very important if you want to evaluate guys not to watch the ball. Where the ball is that's just where the ball is. If you want to watch what's happening so the ball can move around, then that's where you got to focus on these guys. But it's been real nice to see our young batch of guys be behind the starters, and I think that's it's really good to hear him talk about the difference between where we were last year compared to where we are this year. Because it's obvious that that's the most important thing. Whatever protections we have for Aaron Rodgers, keeping him on his feet is vital. But in addition to that, if he's on the field, that impact to the defense, they can no longer stack the box for Breece Hall, which brings me to another incredible comment here. Maybe, just maybe, the New York Jets are finally ahead of the curve. For so long, it has been frustrating to watch the Jets just drag their asses on the way the league is going and then compensate years too late when the league is already shifting to a different direction. A great example was the Gronk Hernandez, that whole 2 tight end thing that was going on for a while. And it took us forever. We waited all the way to Jamal Adams and Marcus May. That's what that was. It was trying to stop these big tight ends, being able to cover the tight end. And it's just the craziest thing. It took us years to actually pay attention to this. We had nobody that could cover these. That's what we're trying to do. This is an opportunity here because we know trends. Aaron Rodgers is talking about something that insinuates the Jets are ahead of the curve. For that, let's get into this week's Intelligent Gripe. So, what do I mean? Let's look at this comment and let's talk about it for just a few moments, if I may. The league is very cyclical. And I think the cycles right now, you're seeing more teams wanting to establish the run game because teams on defense have decided to play a lot more nickel packages and dime packages, using safeties as linebackers. Why did they do that? Well, because you know the saying, the NFL is a passing league. The NFL is a passing league. Well, that is a trend that happened. And what teams on defense had to do to combat these dynamic passing, and you see it in the draft, year after year, wide receivers. So we had to, as a defense, you had to compensate by having more defensive backs on the field. So what does that do to team makeup? You're going to choose a smaller 5'10", 189-pound defensive back over the extra linebacker that's 250, 248, 6'2". You're going to choose that. You start to see teams get quicker, be able to cover more, but they get smaller and they get weaker. Right? So what does that ask for? Well, let's see. When you do that, you're kind of begging teams to run the football. Why? Because there's all these little tinies running around out there. This guy's 5'9". He's 176. I want to run him over. That's what you want to do. I want to smash that kid's face. It begs teams to run the football. So we have to run the football to be able to open up some stuff in the passing game, the play action stuff. I like the way that we've done it. You look at our backs. You have to be excited about 0, which is Braylon Allen, and 32, Isaiah Davis. The way they've played the preseason, Breece is such a different player this year. Like, the question is not whether or not Breece Hall is an absolute stud muffin, right? That's not what we're talking about. That's enough, by the way, just having him. But they've brought on Braylon Allen and Isaiah Davis to bolster that. Why? They can get the hard yards, they can receive in the passing game, and they can pass protect. If they're on the field, they're not a liability one way or the other. That has not been the case with anybody outside of Breece Hall on the field. Dalvin Cook, Michael Carter, with all due respect to whatever they are and have done, liabilities in the passing game. You see? So the Jets, the complete cyclical trend has not flipped yet. So what we did this year, we already have Brees. You add Braylon Allen. You add Isaiah Davis. Even Izzy, who's not a small back, if he makes the squad, is another one because he has that extra pep in his step once he gets, in line, cooking. He's got that extra gear, as we say. But it's also beckons to use the tight ends. We see 12 personnel. We saw 13 personnel last year from the Jets, which is 1 back, 3 tight ends. You start bringing these guys on. Kenny Yeboah in the backfield. Ferks are out there, right? Conklin, Ruckert, of course. Think about this. You come out there with a Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Conklin, Ruckert offense. What are you going to do? You're going to beat the living hell out of the defensive backs, the smaller linebackers. That's the whole goal. Now listen to this. Last night's game was a turd. But what did we do? We won, right? We won the game. Now you don't want every game to look like that and be sloppy and all that, but we won. How did we win? Robert Saleh, by the way, talking about this player, Braylon Allen, he talks about him, and I'll give you this comment first, and then we're going to talk about this. Braylon had a couple, Saleh said, of the 6'1", 235-pound Wisconsin product. It was 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and he had a violent 4-yard run where he just moved the entire pile. We picked him for a lot of reasons, because he's actually really good out of the backfield in route running. He's really good in protection, too. We think he's an all-around good back, very powerful runner, too. And he's displayed that down in and down out. So there was one drive where Braylon Allen had 7 carries, right? So each one, 3 or 4 yard gains. Nothing electric. Nothing like week 1 in the preseason where he had 23-yarder and a 20-yarder. That's not what we're talking about. He had 3 and 4 yards. So this one field goal drive, all right? So we had 5 field goals last night. We didn't get into the end zone. All right, it's a sloppy, rainy day where you wanna rely on your running game. We had a 49-play drive. 37 of those yards were Braylon Allen. The drive took 8 minutes and 48 seconds off the clock. So what we're talking about here is a ball control scoring drive. Now, you'd love to see the touchdown, right? Of course. But in a game like this, where they're going to happen, these types of games happen, sloppy, rainy, inefficient type of a game. In that type of a game, you want to just put it in your back's hands and let them control the clock, keep their offense off the field so we keep it low scoring, and we make sure that we get points at the end of it. So on that drive, he had a 2nd and 3 where he gets 4 yards for the first down. Then there's a 3rd and 2. He gets 4 yards for the first down. Now they take him out. That was his last run, and they fizzle with the passing and everything, and we end up getting a field goal. But what have I been telling you for fucking years, man? It's not that that's what all I want, but 4 yards a play wins the game. This is a beautiful example of exactly that. You have guys that on 2nd and 3, 3rd and 2, they're going to get 4 yards, gets it. 2nd and 3, 4. Look, if you wanted the breakdown, 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, 3rd and 2, first down. You see what I'm saying? So it's not the most exciting game in the world, but when you can feel it in the stadium. You feel it. This is a sloppy one, everybody. This is a sloppy one. We need 4 yards. We saw it last night, 15-13. Not the way you want to win every game. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but the Jets getting ahead of the trend. You have the backs that can do it. They do 2 things. They run hard, they fall forward. That's 3-4 yards every single time, just on the fall forward piece. Run him into the pile. He's going to get 4 yards. If you can do that, You're going to win those games that are so low scoring that anything happens and you can lose it. So what do? You keep their offense off the field. That was a 9-minute drive. 9-minute field goal drive, 49 yards, 9 minutes off the clock. That's what we're talking about. When you talk about the cyclical trends, you want to bring a bunch of defensive backs. You want to play dime. If your team's built to have an effective dime package, you know what we're going to do? We're going to stack it with our big bodies. We have plenty of them. Guess what? They can pound your face off. They can all be effective in the passing game. Go ahead, bring your defensive backs. Your 5'10" defensive back trying to cover my 6'4" tight end. Fine, bring them. You got a quarterback that can put the ball where it's supposed to be. This is going to work. So Aaron Rodgers talking about the Jets actually being ahead of the trend for once. Can you imagine it, guys? Let's go out there with the way the team's built, where the offensive line is able to move people for the first time in a while. We have backs that can pound the living hell out of you. If you do want to bring 7 or so into the box, go ahead. We can still pound your face off. Your linebackers are converted safeties in many respects. It's fine. Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis, Breece Hall, they're happy to run right into you. No problem. We'll fall forward for 3 or 4, and that'll be that. Aaron Rodgers makes them honest, so they can do that very rarely with bringing extra bodies into the box. If they do, he's going to be able to make them pay. We got Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, Malachi Corley, Alan Lazard, those guys around the outsides. No problem. That's why he's talking about being excited after the Panthers game. Because the way that we built the team is to be ahead of the cyclical trend and take advantage of the plethora, the overabundance of small bodies that most NFL defenses have been stocked with. Not a bad gig. So far, so good. What we're seeing in the preseason, maybe the backup quarterbacks are inconsistent. Maybe the wide receivers aren't showing too much to make you, know exactly who the sure number 6 or potentially 7th wide receivers are. Okay, but I'll tell you what we did do. We got ahead of the trend, and we have a team that can batter the living hell out of most defenses in the NFL. And by the way, once they try to stop it, our quarterback can absolutely make you pay the price for having to do it that way. With that all said, I'm in a good mood now, baby. Let's go, Jets. I would like to remind you to like and subscribe on the video. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. It's the only way that we can grow. And let's go into this week. Have a good time. We'll keep tabs on this Reddick situation, see what we got there, and go into our final preseason game against the crosstown rival New York Giants, the Snoopy Bowl, as we call it. Don't forget about the Talkin' Jets meetup September 29th. I'll have information this week about the Coney Island takeover as well the day before. I love the direction of this team. With that all said, have a great week. As always, go Jets and skiddly-doo!